Great. I was actually frozen. I was kidding. It's just that, you know what's annoying is when you have to like wait until you're live, but you're not really sure that you're live, so you're waiting. And I'm like, that's so lame, right? So I decided this time I would just pretend I was frozen because that's better. Because it is. Can you hear me? Hi, I'm Geeta Nakarni. I'm the founder of Impact with Influence. And today we are going to be talking about how to design a group program that is better, I did say better, than one-on-one coaching. Hello. All right. So I'm going to talk you through. So I thought that this was a really good topic to explore, and you guys voted this as your absolute favorite topic. This is what you wanted to hear about. Let me go see. I see it. And now it's loud. One of these days I will figure this out. There's Cat in. Fantastic. If you're watching this, I want you to tell me what do you do? Do you do one-on-one coaching or do you do group coaching? So tell me in the comments, what is your topic and which kind of model are you following? Because this was a huge limiter in my own business, because there was a point, when I was back in the day before Impact with Influence existed, where I could not see how to create amazing client results in a group context. I had done it with group coaching with my Baby Got Booked program, but I couldn't see how to do a premium experience as a group. So tell me if this resonates for you. Do any of you feel like you've struggled with this or are currently struggling with this? Because I'm going to walk you through every single limiting belief that I had and how I overcame it so that hopefully you can too. All right. Give me a hashtag replay, by the way. Give me a hashtag replay if you are watching this on the replay, because I know several of you wrote to me and direct messaged me, private messaged me, wrote me on the email to tell me that you really were interested in this topic. You sent me in your questions, which I'm going to get to, but you couldn't be here live. So give me a hashtag replay if you're watching this, because I want to make sure that you're following along, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and I'm going to come back after and make sure that I answer every single comment, so that if you ask a question that I didn't have the opportunity to get to because you weren't here live, then I'll do my best to do that. All right. So let's just get into it, okay? Because the first thing we have to do is to explore the limitations and problems with one-on-one coaching. And I know some of you are like, well, I'm getting burnt out. Like, that's pretty much it. You may not even realize some of the limitations that are built into this model that are keeping you stuck or that are subconsciously preventing you from becoming successful. And so I want to unpack them all for you so that you can then make a more informed decision about which business model is going to make sense for you. All right, does that make sense? All right, let's get into it. So the very first piece, and I know many of you were very interested in exploring this, is one-on-one is often overly customized. Okay, so it's often overly customized. So what I see, what I mean by this is, how many of you can identify with this? Tell me in the chat. Tell me in the comment section. You do all your coaching one-on-one, you have maybe some kind of loosey-goosey onboarding process, and then it's like, a call a week or 2 calls a week or 2 calls a month or whatever the deal is. And then you have your 60-minute, 90-minute client call, you get into whatever they bring up in that moment, and then you coach them based on what they bring to you, and then that's that. Now, the problem with this is that it really depends on what the client's level of acuity is around their problem. Like, how much have they actually figured out? Because what I see is as a limitation with this is that a lot of times coaches will answer the questions that clients bring up. They answer the problems that clients present. The problem with that is that the client doesn't always know exactly what's wrong. So they're asking, I can't tell you the number of times somebody has come to us and said, hey, help me grow my audience. My problem is I have the wrong audience. My audience is totally broke. My audience is this, my audience is that. They're not aligned, etc. And then what we'll do is we'll help them. We realize that the audience was not the problem in this particular person's case. And instead, what we do is we help them craft their messaging. We help them take off their subconscious limiters, because a lot of times they're bringing, a hatred of money, anti-capitalism. Oh, you'll be surprised at some of the blocks that we've looked at around money and abundance and growth, etc. Oftentimes, and tell me how many of you can relate to this, a lot of people have limiters around, oh my God, this is going to take me away from my family. This is going to take me away from my friends and my social life. I'm just going to burn out like I did in the past. A lot of people have a history of burnout in corporate. They get into coaching and then they go ahead and recreate that same problem. So because of all of these factors, they will bring problems and they'd be like, no, tell me how to do X, Y, Z. And if we actually took their advice and told them how to do X, Y, Z, we would actually recreate the same problem. If, Stephen Kuhn, you guys probably know the story already. If you've been following me for any length of time, he came to us, he thought everybody in his audience was broke. And I was like, that's impossible. That's impossible. You've got a gigantic audience bigger than mine. How did you get all the broke people? Well, it turned out his messaging was completely off and nobody understood what the F his offer was. So surprise, nobody was buying, right? Nobody understood what the heck they were buying. The second we helped him clarify his offer, he made a $16,000 sale, like literally day 2. Same broke audience. And he made $100,000 plus in the 8 weeks that he worked with us from that same broke audience. We did not help him build a new audience. We literally helped him make that same audience work. So again, imagine if I had taken his word for his problem and I had helped him build a whole new audience, he would have had the exact same problem with this new audience because the problem was never the audience. So what I mean is, one-on-one is often overly customized because you're taking your client's word for what their problem actually is. You're, working with whatever the client brings you. It's very reactionary. It's not proactive. Another issue I see, and we can get into this in a bit, is that you're basically reinventing the wheel with every single client because you have not bothered to systematize your process. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, because I know you're going to tell me, you're going to be like, no, Geeta, you don't understand. Every client is totally different. You don't understand. Every client is different. Their needs are different. I don't want to put them into some kind of crappy cookie cutter program and be that guy. Ugh, right? I get it. I hear you. These were all my own limitations. These were all my own limiting beliefs as well. And the fact of the matter is, here's the deal. Here's what I realized that then helped me scale my business without compromising client results. Number one thing, the reason that you're doing everything piece by piece, fresh client by fresh client, think about it. If you've really understood your offer, if you've got a dialed in offer, if you don't have a dialed in offer, that's a whole other series of problems. We'll get to that in a moment. But if you have a dialed in offer, then every client is going to have a version of the same freaking onboarding process. Think about that. If you systematized and automated that same process that you literally go through with every single client, you're going to free up 80% of your energy. Is some stuff absolutely custom that needs to be 100% customized to the client? Is some things that you do what you hear in the moment, the inspiration of the moment, the way you channel your coaching genius in that moment? Absolutely. But think about it. If you're doing everything from scratch and basically doing the same processes manually with every single client, you've got 100% of your energy spread out over the 100% of the workload. If you systematize the 80%, and yes, it is literally 80%, you will be shocked at how much of your genius can be systematized and automated, then 80% becomes automated. Now 100% of your energy is available for the 20% that is pure magic, because there is that part that is pure magic. 100%. That is the part that gets clients crazy results. 100%. But think about that. Aren't you going to get way better results if you have 100% of your energy concentrated on the 20% that is pure magic, rather than doing it over and over and over, which also leads to burnout and boredom? And that brings me to my next point. One-on-one can quickly lead to either stagnation or burnout. I have coached a client who was very resistant to taking her one-on-one program into group. We did help her raise her prices, so we did manage to get her that. And she was making way more money than she'd ever made in her life. So she went from making like under $5,000 to like $25,000 a month. We helped her do that. That was great. here was the problem. She was doing the same process with every client over and over and over because she was resistant to creating systems, because her subconscious limiting belief was, if I create a system, it's going to be cookie cutter. It's going to feel, it's going to feel really milk toast. It's going to feel like clients are not going to get what they want. And so she was really struggling with that limiting belief, which we had to release. But here's what was happening as a result. She was getting bored with her own program. She was like, oh, find myself repeating myself all the time. Like, I want it to be fresh. I want it to be fulfilling. I want it to be new. I want it to be interesting for me. And so she was now beginning to get into that cycle of self-sabotage where she didn't actually want new clients, subconsciously, of course, anymore, because she didn't want to go through the same yada, yada over and over again. You got to automate the yada, yada. Right? It is important because think about it, for you, it's old hat. For you, it's really familiar. For your new client, it's brand spanking new. They've never gone through this before. This is like a huge epiphany for them. They need it, and they need the time and energy to put into it. But you can give that to them and then work with them at the point where they arrive, where they've gone through that process. And what that does is it keeps the work much, much deeper, much more fulfilling. And what's beautiful about this, and we do this in our own program, the very first week when people start working with us, we walk them through, I have videos that I've created where I walk them through my deep thinking exercise, where I'm helping you really understand who your ideal client is, exactly how they're a mirror of you, where on the continuum they need to be in order for them to raise their hand and say, I'm ready to work with you, right? Because we've talked about the continuum before. If they're not at the right place on the continuum, even though they are the ideal client, they just haven't gotten to that place where they're ready to buy. So we have this whole thing mapped out. We have it all automated. Every client that we work with will go through this process. They will submit all of the thoughts, all of the questions that I asked. They will submit all of those answers in a Google Doc through our Zendesk. And then the copy coaches and I will look over it and be like, oh, they figured this part out and this part is really vague. So we'll be able to give very, very detailed, customized feedback on what they've already come up with. So by the time we enter the process is 80% done. Now that extra 20%, you bet it's pure magic. It absolutely is. Some people need 30% because they're a little early in that journey. They're not very clear. They've got a bunch of limiting beliefs that we can now diagnose because we can see them coming up in the document. And some people are like, wow, they have really understood the process. They follow the system. They totally get it. They go deeper than they've ever gone before. They're like, oh, this is amazing. We come in and start where you think you're done. That's where we start. And sometimes it's just that extra 3% tweak that you need that's going to take your messaging and just it's going to take off. It's going to give your ideal clients goosebumps. It's going to make them feel like crying because they finally feel understood. So that's how we do it. And so I'm doing this leading by example. I can prove to you that this is the best way to prevent either stagnation or burnout. Because here's the thing about one-on-one. Think about it. You've got a ceiling built in. At some point, you're going to hit a number where in order to grow past it, you either have to raise your prices or you have to take on more clients. How many of you, now this is a difficult question to answer. So if you're really not making a whole lot of money, you're going to be like, oh shit, if I got to 15 grand a month, or if I got to 25 grand a month, I would be so happy and I would be done. But I'm going to ask you to rewind your entire history and ask yourself, every time you get to a goal or get close to a goal, do you not move that goalpost further? Because if you don't, you're probably not our client, because we work with high achievers, like type A high achievers. That's who I am. That's who we work with. And typically the second you get anywhere near a goal, you immediately move the goalposts. When you get to 20 grand, you're going to set your goalpost for 40, right? When you get to 40 grand, you're going to set your goalpost for 100. That's how it works, because humans are built for expansion. It's not about greed. It's not about anything like that, but you're going to want to tweak the parameters. Maybe you don't care about the money. Maybe it's not the money that you want to expand. It's your free time that you want to expand. You want to stay at 40 grand, but you want to take, half the month off, or you want to take a week off every month, or you want to take 4, whatever it is, whatever that looks like. So all this to say that the only way that you could reasonably work with one-on-one, no matter how successful you are, no matter how well it's going, you are going to hit a point where either you're going to stagnate where your business then remains exactly the same. Your calendar is full. Your clients come in, but you're doing exactly the same thing day after day, month after month, year after year. Does that sound like something you want? I know it doesn't for me. So I know that it doesn't, but maybe it does for you, and that's fair. No judgment. So that's stagnation. Or you're going for that drive to expand, but your model doesn't fit it, in which case you're going to get burnout. Does that make sense? Give me a big thumbs up if that makes sense. So I'm looking through yeah, so there you go. I can relate with my trauma therapy recovery work. Yeah, there you go. So that's what Paula says. Kundan says, I do mainly one-on-one coaching online, but have facilitated group and in-person workshops. Yes. So tell me what has resonated with you so far so I can kind of see, or if you have any questions, so I can kind of see as you scroll. Meanwhile, I'm going to go on to my third point. If you do one-on-one, what happens when you need a break? What happens if you get COVID? I mean, let's call a spade a spade. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. And if you don't already have people in your close circle that have COVID, it's coming, people. We're going into the second wave. It is happening. In our city, restaurants have shut down again, right? There are people on our team that got it. It's happening. So it may happen to you. So what happens if you are one of these unlucky people that don't bounce back immediately, right? Some people get sick and it's like a little flu, no big deal. Some people who are super healthy, marathon runners, and there are people in my circle that fit this bill, young, super healthy, very fit. You think they were invincible, never get a cold, get COVID, they're out of commission for 3 weeks straight. They literally cannot talk, they cannot eat, they lose their muscle mass, they lose weight, they're a shell of themselves. And then I'm not even counting, I don't even know what's going to happen next, right? We don't know what the long-term effects are. All this to say, if you need a break from your one-on-one work and all you do is one-on-one, what carries that load then? How do you scale? How do you hire somebody to take your place? Like, we have a team, right? If I got taken out, if somebody else got taken out on the team, the rest of us can move around and fulfill. We can still keep all the promises that we make to our clients because there's many of us supporting clients, not just one person carrying all the load. And the problem, of course, with one-on-one is, again, you take a vacation. So let's say it's not even something devastating like COVID. Let's say you take a vacation. You want to take like 2 weeks off. Your revenue just dries up for 2 weeks and that's it. And then you come back and you have a backlog and you have to like start your client acquisition cycle again. And then you're always like balancing between fulfillment and client acquisition and fulfillment and client acquisition. And that can get really heavy after a time. So what happens when you need a break? When you sell one-on-one, it becomes really difficult to build a team and share responsibility because, and I don't know if any of you have experienced this, everybody only ever wants to play with you. Like, if you've worked with a really great massage therapist, if you've worked with a really great one-on-one coach where you only work with one person when you've had their service, if they hand you off to somebody else, how do you feel? You feel kind of like, oh, well, why do I have to get to play with a B player? Like, I don't want plan B service. I want A service, right? So that's typically what happens. So if you don't have a structured program that supports and sets clear expectations from the get-go, you can burn out. Okay. So number 4, and let's talk about this because this is the elephant in the room, but I've been in crappy group programs and I don't want to recreate that. That was probably one of my biggest resistances to group because, come on, most people don't know how to build group programs. And so it really can feel like there is a gigantic difference, a stark difference between the intimacy, that connection that you feel with one-on-one, and then group where you're like cattle. You're a face in the crowd. Nobody knows your name. Nobody gives a damn. You're kind of on your own. You're lost, and especially if you're an introvert or you're somebody who doesn't take up a lot of room on a group call or things like that, you kind of just get left behind. So in fact, the more polite you are, the kind of more you get left behind. Does that make sense? How many of you have had that experience? How many of you? So tell me in the comments if that experience resonates with you, because I know that I was kind of like, don't want to create that. Here's the deal. And ask you a question. How many of you have ever worked with a client, especially those of you who do one-on-one work? How many of you have worked with a client that use you to embody their resistance, right? So this is a client who's like, yeah, Geeta, but. Yes, but. The yes, but client. Anybody? Raise your hand. Tell me in the comments if you're like, oh yeah, totally worked with that. Because if you've done one-on-one for any length of time, I can freaking guarantee that you have worked with the yes but client, right? The yes buts of the world, that what they say is, yeah, Geeta, that works for you, but I'm not you. It's easy for you. It's fill in the blank what the deal is. And they just kind of use you to embody their inner resistance. Now, here's the deal. When you know how to structure a group program, and this is what we teach our clients in week 2, we teach them, and we teach them in 2 ways. We have the structure of it, where we teach you the theory of it. We teach you exactly how to position and map out your curriculum. So we teach you how to do that. And on top of that, you're also having the experience of being in a really well-run group program, so that you're not having to take our word for it. You're not learning just theory. You're actually experiencing it from a client perspective, right? So that gives you in-depth lived experience, and you're like, oh, I see how I can apply this in my group. I can see how I can apply this in my group, etc. So here's the deal. So you take that same yes but client, right? The one that embodies resistance, put them in a group setting. Now, when people are having a particular breakthrough, here's what happens, and here's what we've seen on our groups, is that people will be like, oh, I see how this applies to me. And now there's a whole bunch of people, different ages, different genders, different industries, different circumstances, different points in the program, different points in their business. They're all having the same epiphany, because we're a collective consciousness. But that epiphany is being nuanced by each person's experience, right? Each person's nuanced experience is coming through. And they're like, oh, I see how this applies to my people. I see how this applies to me. I see how this applies to my curriculum. I see how this applies to blah, blah, blah. And so you're hearing the same epiphany in a bunch of different nuances and nuanced contexts. And that same resistant client, what tends to happen is there's so much momentum to that epiphany that client will often get swept through their own resistance and suddenly see it. Like me saying it couldn't have worked. One other person saying it couldn't have worked. The third person saying it didn't work. But the fourth person saying it in the context of hearing it 3 other times, now that fourth person who happens to be closer in experience or for whatever reason gels with this resistant client, boom, all of a sudden it'll take. And now the person's like, oh my God, I'm on the other side of this. Like, holy crap, I get it. I get it. Right? So that's what you do. And when you do that, I'm telling you, it is better than one-on-one, because that same client would have just resisted you in the one-on-one sessions and been like, nope, doesn't work for me. Yes, but it can't work for me. Doesn't apply to me. Doesn't apply to my industry. Doesn't apply to my clients. Doesn't apply to blah, 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 whatever. Right? So that's the deal. Now, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, oh, but Geeta, some things you can't say in a group. Like my people would never share. How many of you have this resistance right now? The stuff I do is really intimate. Like people wouldn't share about their sex lives or their money. Like I deal with money. Like people don't want to talk about their finances on a group call. It doesn't work like that. Not in my industry. That's the yes but, by the way. Okay, hold that thought, because I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in this live. Okay, I'm gonna walk you right through that resistance. So hold that thought, but I'd be super curious about that. But I'm gonna just go through the fifth issue with group. Okay, so that I want to get to. But I want to make a great income, and you really can't do that with group. So again, based on your experience with coaching, or based on some of the things that you've seen with your competitors, and I put that in inverted commas because I don't believe in competition, but maybe you do. So if your competitors or other people in your space are charging way less for their groups, so like their one-on-one coaching might be $3,000, but their group program is like $597 or something like that, right? Like there's a gigantic difference between those two things. Here's what's going to happen. First of all, most of you think, oh, I want to make really great money, right? Obviously. And there's nothing wrong. If anybody here thinks that there's something wrong with making really great money, we need to work on your money mindset. Just work on money mindset on your to-do list, because you freaking need to. And we'll give you some resources for that after. If that's you, put it in the comments so I can help you with the right resources. But if you have come to the point where you're like, shit, yeah, I run a business. I need to have money. I need to, if I'm going to pour my life's energy into this work, I need to have equal nourishment coming back to me, to my family, to those I care about, etc. So if you're determined to make money, the mistake that I see a lot of people making is that they think, so this is your logical fallacy that creates this in your business. They think that the way that they're going to make a bulk of their money is the one-on-one coaching. They're like, yeah, but I only need 2 or 3 clients, and then I'm going to make 15 grand and it's going to be fine. And then, the people who can't afford that, I'll just sell them the low dollar thing and that'll be fine. But here's the reality of how that works. First of all, you still have to go and speak to all of the people to figure out who fits which one. That's one. The second reality is you're going to have to still market. Like, you still have to put some energy into your group program that may be generating very little return, but it generates, and God, how many of you can relate to this? This was so my problem. Oh, it was so frustrating. If it generates no money at all, then it's kind of easier to kill, even if you've put a lot of time, energy, money, etc. into it, because you're like, what? Nothing's working. It's dead. Screw it. I'm done. Right? The problem is, especially with high achievers who are really bloody smart and really bloody driven, is that your low offer will generate some revenue, just enough that you can't kill it. So now you're split. You're trying to fill your one-on-one. You're trying to also fill your group. You're like, but I have so much potential with the group. Lots of people, the masses will buy my group program. Seldom works that way. Seldom works that way. And so you're pumping a whole bunch of energy, and you always feel like if you're working on your one-on-one, you should be working on your group, because the potential is really there, because your one-on-one is capped and you kind of acknowledge that. But at the same time, in the short term, that's really where the money is. Anybody familiar? Yeah? So here's the deal. My suggestion, and we're going to get into exactly how we do this, is you're going to combine the two, and you're going to create what we recommend and what we run, which is a hybrid program. You are right. Those of you who are like, but Geeta, there's some breakthroughs require the intimacy of one-on-one. You're absolutely right. When we work with our clients, we do deep, deep soul-searching mindset work. We use multiple modalities, including hypnotherapy. So we're getting people into the state of deep relaxation where their conscious and subconscious are finally connecting. You're finally integrated as a whole. All the pain that you've been hiding from yourself, all the guilt, all the shame, all the lack of permission, all of that stuff comes bubbling up, right? It's ugly, it's messy. This may not be the right thing for a group. Once trust is built in the one-on-one session, we actually do have this kind of sharing happen in our group, on our group calls as well. But for somebody who's never experienced it, that's a really hard sell, right? That's a really hard jump to make, and I acknowledge that. So when we work with our clients, we're doing all of that deep, intimate mindset work one-on-one. So we have a dedicated team for that. We even create custom audios for our clients so that whatever breakthrough happens in the session, you can actually condition it on your own time. You're reprogramming by repetition your subconscious and you're basically like merging your two selves so that they're playing on the same team. Okay. So yes. And we'll talk about the subconscious blocks. Not yet. So that's like subconscious blocks exercise. We're going to get to that. That's in the resources section. We'll get to that. But here's the deal. So if you have a hybrid program, every single person in your group, and this speaks to some of the questions that I see, is like, people won't want to share in the group. Yes, here's the deal. It's how you structure your group. Most people don't know how to run really good group programs. It's how you set the expectations. It's how when you invite a new client and you let them know what the rules are, you let them know how protected they are. Everybody signs, like we have a client agreement and we have a clause in there. We call it the no asshats clause. And it says clearly you cannot bully, belittle, shame, or share other people's privileged information outside the group. And if you do, not only will you be kicked out of the group, but we will take back our login details, because we don't want to enable somebody who shows up that way. Everybody who's on our group calls has to sign that agreement before they get on a group call. So everybody knows that they're protected. So it's also about how you it's your house. It's how do you set the stage? How do you set the rules for what's going to go down in your group? Most people don't know how to hold that space really well. And that's why people are like, I don't know what I want to share in this group. I don't know if I belong in this group. And that's what tends to happen, because you as the leader of the group don't have clarity on exactly what this group is about and what the depth is that you want to create in it. So that's why we teach it the way that we do. So All right. So what I was going to say is, you want to create a hybrid program where you have both the one-on-one, so everybody feels really held, everybody feels really nurtured, everybody has a space to have their breakdown, to ugly cry, to fall apart, to do whatever they need to do in order for them to birth their true self. And then you can have the group component where, again, you're having some breakthroughs. This is how I like to explain it. Some breakthroughs require the intimacy of one-on-one, and some breakthroughs require the momentum of a group. And why choose if you don't need to? That was my problem. I thought it was an either or. And it's only when I realized, well, duh, I could just have both and, that the dilemma went away. And that's how we structured our program. So we have a whole team that works with every single one of our clients works with multiple of us. I'm everybody's coach. In addition to me, they have a copy coach that is dedicated to them. In addition to that, they have a mindset coach that is dedicated to them. In addition to that, we have a success coach that makes sure that everybody is cool and everything is working fine. And everybody has logins and everybody, do you see what I mean? So there's so much support that happens, and you can build that when you have the cash flow. And we'll get to that in a second, right? So if I walked away from this idea that the only way I can make money is by one-on-one. Now it's super interesting. Our group program is super premium. Like it's, a five-figure investment for sure, multiple five-figure investment to work with us. But which allows me to then afford a team of absolute A players that can deliver results that I personally just by myself couldn't, right? So we've grown to this. Did I start by myself? Yes. But do we now provide this incredible experience that I could never provide just by myself? Absolutely. That's what makes it worth the price tag. Now, if I had thought, oh my God, the only way I can make money is by doing one-on-ones, this would be totally different. Now, it's very rare that I work with clients one-on-one. Every so often, I will meet a client and I'm like, you're the one. I don't know why. And I trust this. My intuition is very sharp. And that client will be like, yeah, I need to work with you one-on-one. And then we will work together one-on-one for a set amount of time. And the beautiful thing about this is that I am really not doing it for the money. And it's very expensive to work with me one-on-one, obviously, but it is actually not the most profitable use of my time, even though it's expensive for the client to work with me. Do you see what I'm saying? Because that same time, if I had invested in building systems or processes or mentoring my team or doing something else, that's going to bring 5 times what I make working with that one client. But sometimes I know it's right, and I do it because I know that there's something in that client that mirrors healing that I'm trying to accomplish myself. And in helping them heal, I'm going to heal myself. So that's when I find a client like that, I'm like, I'm going to help you with this thing. Like, we're going to work on this thing together because I want to work on it for me, right? And there's that incredible, crazy alignment. And then we do that. But I have no money pressure to do it. I do it because it's right. Does that make sense? So my one-on-ones are super duper limited, and they're not for the money. The money's great, but honestly, I would make a lot more money just from the group. Does that make sense? So I wanted to put that there. And that's why you should build a hybrid program. Second piece, you want both systems and customization. Again, it's not an either or, it's a both and, okay? And what that does is basically you have to think through, and this is what we help our clients do. So if you have trouble with this, come get our help. What we help our clients do is think through, what are all the steps that are required for each participant to get from point A, which is their pain, to point B, which is the outcome that you create, the transformation that you create. What is that process, and what are the steps that all the participants need to take, in order to go through this transformation? You map that out, you will automate that and systematize that. So that piece is running like clockwork. Think about that. What that does is it also helps all of your clients have a very consistent experience. So you're not like, hey, client works with you in January, she's absolutely ecstatic. You're kind of tired and burnt out by May. Client works with you in May, and they're like, wow, I don't know why that January client was raving so much about this person. Like, she really didn't show up for me, right? You don't have that issue because everything is systematized and it's consistent. Now, Will each client still require a lot of handling and customization? Oh, heck yes, absolutely. So you can have your group coaching calls. You can have your one-on-one process that you take them through. So they have a set number of one-on-one appointments. You can customize, like our clients have unlimited written support through help desk. So as they're working through their messaging, we're writing back, we're tweaking their message, we're giving them suggestions, we're re-sculpting, when let's say they lay out their program, we're like, week 2 and week 5, they look really similar. Maybe we should collapse that. And how does this order look? So having that outside set of eyes, that's really not just an outside set of eyes, like how you would get at home, maybe from a well-meaning friend or family member, but an outside set of eyes that is absolutely expert in what they do they do this, right? So it's a very intelligent, educated outside set of eyes. They're not as knowledgeable about your thing, like the specific transformation you create, but they understand the process. And because they're not as knowledgeable as you about the transformation you create, they're also able to ask you guided questions that help you clarify your intention, clarify your process, clarify all the details that go into your program. That's what's going to let you create a group program. So let's say you want to sell it for $5K. What our intention is to help you create a $10,000 program that is absolutely kick-ass, which will totally deliver results, so that you basically have a 10 grand program that you're now selling for $5K. That is what's going to make you feel really great. That's going to make the client feel like it's an absolute steal. They're going to get 10K worth of results for $5K, and that's what's going to turn them into an army of raving fans for you. Does that make sense? So yeah, you want both the systems and the customization. Now, and that brings us to the next point, which I've slightly covered already, which is you have to understand what breakthroughs need to happen, and then you have to design for that. Okay? So in our program, for example, we know that, by the end of week 1, people will have absolute clarity on who their ideal client is and what their deal is and who that client is in relation to them. So those two things are very important. By week 2, we know that the milestone that they're going to reach is their program is going to be designed. The outline is going to be complete. The curriculum is going to be mapped out, and they're ready to start selling. So by week 3, we give them sales training and we teach them exactly what goes in their messaging. What is my messaging formula? So the PAR formula that I teach you step by step. We give you templates to kind of the training wheels, if you will, to hold your hand while you learn the process. We give you dedicated customized feedback, etc. So you see, we've mapped everything out. So because we know, okay, by week 2, they need to know this. By week 3, they need to know this. By week 4, they need to know this. We're able to then design our process to go through like that. And that's exactly what we help you do. And a client that comes to mind with this is that Jen Boson, who runs a company that teaches PR professionals. So she's a PR professional herself. She has like a close to 7-figure PR agency that works with beauty and baby brands and things like that. She has her niche in that. And then what she came to us to help her design was what she calls Agency Accelerator. So that's the program that we help her design, her premium program. And what was really interesting about this is that the stuff she desperately wanted to talk to her tribe about was all the mindset stuff. It was the emotional stuff. It was the stuff around, imposter syndrome and how it holds you back, especially in the PR world, which is all, glitzy and glamorous and so on. She wanted to talk about all those things, but she felt really inhibited, and she felt like an imposter because she was like, I've never really studied it. And it was through going and experiencing her own transformation around these specific topics, she got the support that she wanted to provide. She received it from us. She had the transformation herself. And now in her program, there is this amazing, everything every week that she walks her clients through, they have a side of mindset. She's talking about imposter syndrome, and she's able to do it in a way where people are like minds blown. She gets love letters on the weekly. She gets thank you notes in the mail. Like, it's a beautiful thing. And she's like, and the fact that I get to make an incredible living doing it, that's just cherry on top. I finally gotten to build the program that I've always wanted to deliver, but didn't feel like I had permission to deliver because I hadn't lived that experience. So a huge part of this is, again, knowing what what the milestones need to be, and then making sure that you have received the same support that you seek to give to somebody else, because that's what's going to make you an amazing coach. You can't take someone a place that you've never been. Right? People pick up on that. That's what's going to fuel your imposter syndrome. Whereas if you have legitimately gone through that transformation yourself, it becomes so easy to then bake that into your program because you know exactly how valuable it is. You've lived it yourself, and now you're excited to create it for someone else, because in creating it for someone else, you're going to relive it. You're going to re-experience it. You're going to deepen your understanding of that same transformation, deepen your own healing, and that makes you a better coach, and, rinse, repeat. Does that make sense? And that brings me to the final point, which flows beautifully from that, which is be your own best client. Lead by example, right? If you're not using your own methods, if you're not following your own process, especially if you're not doing all these things over time, then it becomes really difficult to have the depth of confidence that you're going to need to charge a premium for a group program. Right? You want to work with a multitude. So here's what's going to happen. If you have not tested your own process on yourself, if you're not drinking your own medicine, if you haven't done it for a certain amount of time, and really you feel solid in your process. So again, you're not ready for what we do. Okay. So I just want to put that on the table. If you're super duper solid in your process, you're like, oh, heck yes. I'm, on a scale of 1 to 10, if somebody pays me $5,000 or 10 grand or 25 grand or whatever it is to work with me, I am a 10 on 10 that they will get the results if they do what I tell them to do. I'm a 10 on 10 because my method really works. It's worked for me. It has maybe worked for others. But even if you haven't had other clients, if it has really deeply worked for you, and it has worked where you have sustained the transformation over time, super important, then what that's going to do is it's going to give you the confidence to know that your method works. It works over time. It works across circumstances. If the method has its limitations or places where it breaks, you will have experienced those. You will have figured out how to patch it. You will have figured out how to either tweak it or enhance it or eliminate it or, replace it with something that works better. And that, to me, I believe, is the antidote to imposter syndrome. We help you see that gap, but it's really this that helps you deliver a program that you freaking believe in 100%. Okay, so if anybody needs help building an amazing hybrid group program around your expertise, use the link that I'm going to put up on the screen so that we'll walk you through, get on a call, book a call with our team. Somebody on my team from my coaching team will walk you through exactly what we believe the actual problem is. Because 9 times out of 10, I'll tell you this from doing hundreds of epiphany sessions, coaching my team through hundreds of epiphany sessions. 9 times out of 10, the problem you think you have is not the problem that you need to solve. And that's why you're stuck. And that's why you've been stuck despite investing in all the programs and, doing all the things and trying all the tactics and whatnot. It's because you haven't actually gotten to the root of the problem. And when you do that, everything else kind of falls away and falls into place because there's alignment. Okay, so if you need help with that, use the link that's on the screen, and I'm going to go take questions. Okay, so Laura needs help to work on money mindset. So Laura, a really great tool that I would have, there are 2 things that I would use for money mindset. If you go to the video section, the first things first is you definitely need to do the subconscious blocks exercise, which, by the way, I'm about to rename. I finally come up with a sexy name. You want to hear it? Who wants to hear it? Okay, because I'm like, subconscious blocks, such a long name. It's really not a sexy name. Subconscious blocks exercise. Geeta, you're a messaging coach. You can do better, right? So here's what I've decided we're going to call it. We're going to call it the clarificator, because that's what this tool actually is. It is the clarificator. It is the thing that helps you clarify your own deepest intention, not just what your conscious mind thinks at once, but what your subconscious mind feels safe to allow. And when you understand what your deepest needs are, you are in a position to then consciously meet those needs and then meet all of the goals that are around that. Does that make sense? Super important. Pat just put on the screen, where you can find it in the media section. Laura, if you think that you have a money mindset issue, if you're like scared, and I'm going to do a whole post, by the way, there's a post coming, so look out for it over the next couple of days. I'm going to take time to maybe sit down and write it out tomorrow. Most people, the reason that they struggle with money is not because they're like, ew, money is evil. Most of us Some of us, yes, that's the case because they associate money. So you may not even be aware of it consciously, but maybe you have subconscious associations of rich people treating you poorly or rich people treating people you love poorly or some version of that. And that will be your aversion to then growing up to be someone you hate, right? And that will prevent you from making money. But a lot of times, for those of us who don't necessarily have something as obvious as that, money makes us more. Money makes us more. That's it. It elevates us. It kind of erases a lot of the rules that have historically applied to us. So think about this. It's a little bit like taking the side wheels off your bike, taking the barricade off the edge of the cliff, right? Now you're actually free to go as fast as you like. Money will allow you access to things that you've never had access to. Money will allow you to buy your way into situations. Money will allow yourself to buy your way out of situations. And what ends up happening is if you're not clear, and this is why I tell you to use the clarificator, if you're not clear on your own internal deal, what your actual desires are, your needs are, your safety is, all of those things, then what ends up happening is you have a lack of self-trust, which then prevents you from having money because a part of you is like, what if I make a whole bunch of money and then I buy myself into a situation that I fucking hate, or I buy myself out of a situation that I really love, right? And we all have examples of this from the popular press. We all have examples of this from real life, where we know people who money has led them to do shit that they really regret, right? And maybe we've been those people also. And so that can be a huge piece of this. And you need to go do that exercise and use the clarificator so that you can get clear on your own deal. Okay. Yeah, I just changed the name. Just so right when Pat actually built a really pretty link, I just changed the name randomly without letting him know. Hey man, we've been together 16 years. If I don't keep you on your toes, then who's gonna do it, right? Yes, exactly. So he says registration link goes to case study download page. If you go to the page, you can sign, you'll watch my 30-minute training. Go watch my 30-minute training, and then you will get an overview, a deeper overview of exactly what our process is, all the different weeks, what we do, and how we do what we do. And if after watching that 30-minute overview and you're clear now on and you agree that what we think your problem is what your problem is, but you want confirmation and you want maybe some support moving forward, then you can book a call and talk to someone on the team. Does that make sense? I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my team's time. I want to make sure that if we're getting on that call, there is deep alignment. You're going to get value out of it. You're maybe going to sign up for support from us, or maybe we won't make you an offer because you're not ready yet, and that can happen. So I don't want anyone to be offended, but we will give you resources to use that will actually help you. These lives are part of those resources. I come back here, I ask you what you want from me, and I create trainings that actually fucking train and aren't just like fluffy pieces. Yes? Hopefully you're getting value from this. Let me know if you are. Okay, so how about money requires you to hustle hard and burn out? See, there you go, Sneha. If once you understand what your underlying issue is with money, it's going to help you then you can get the tools to rewrite that. Then you can, get the support and be like, actually, I don't believe that. Or in what context can I create a different reality around money? Because I will tell you this, having money in my life does not lead to hustle or burnout. Why? Because I was able to hire expert help, coaches that I needed to help me up level. I was able to hire a team to help spread the load so I don't have to carry everything by myself. We have this amazing living situation where we live in one condo and we work in a separate condo. So we have like work-life separation. It's like a freaking awesome deal. I could not afford this if I didn't have money, right? So it has actually helped my family for us to have money, which somewhere in the back of our mind, we understand. It's just that the process to get to it, we think is going to be painful or damaging. And you've got to undo those threads. And that's why we do the mindset support with the business building support, because it kind of sucks to get all the mindset support and have your mind be like, woohoo, I'm ready for abundance, baby, and then not know what to do with it, right? And then you're like, what the fuck step do I take? What do I actually do? because there is a place for doing. There is a time and place for being, and there is a time and place for doing. And those things are not either or, those are both and. So what our program does is it puts those two pieces together so that we can support you in a more deep way. Okay, so, all right, let's see. Somebody had asked the question, and I don't remember where it is. Yeah, see, so Laura says, yeah, Bob, she took a Bob Proctor program. I don't want to name names here, but this is Laura's experience. He was supposed to be my coach, and I never got to interact with him at all. See, that's the thing. In our program, this doesn't happen. I am up your butt, people. Like, if you decide to work with my team you're working with my team and me. And I lead all my Tuesday calls. I know everybody's stuff. You know, if you will see comments from me on your tickets, you will hear me talk to you. If you don't even submit a question, I will ask you questions, because sometimes I have questions for you, because I don't want anybody hiding in the back of the class and being like, well, I don't really know what to ask, so I'm just going to hide here. That's what high achievers do. When they get stuck and they don't know what to ask, they get paralyzed and ashamed. High achiever over here, right? Because I know my own psychology and I've done so much inner work, it's really easy for me to recognize these patterns in you. That's part of what makes us, everybody on the coaching team has done the same work. That's what makes us such kick-ass coaches, is because you can't hide from us, because we've stopped hiding from ourselves, if that makes sense. Okay, somebody had asked a question here, which is, somebody had asked a question, I can't find it now, but it said, like, what is the optimum size for a group, right? Which I thought was a great question. So obviously it depends on your process. It depends on your program. Probably you don't want your group to be, much bigger than 50 to 60 people. Like, that would be a pretty dang big group. Like, that would be the edge of, like, and then at that point, and what's interesting is we're getting to that point in our company and in our growth where we're like, okay, what do we do as we are signing up more and more people? Our calendar is booked. People want to sign up. People want to work with us. We're expanding the team. We're expanding our resources. And it's been interesting. I have done that subconscious block / clarificator exercise myself around this. This is a freaking amazing tool, people, and I've given it to you for free. So please do yourself a favor and use it. But I had to sift through my own inhibitors around that, because I was like, I don't want to do what, Bob Proctor was forced to do. Is he a bad guy? I don't think so. Did he grow past his ability to nurture? Sounds like it, right? And I don't want to do that. So we're currently brainstorming about what we would do. And part of the understanding that we've come up with is we're going to open up more calls, so that we're going to split our team. Some people will be on some calls, some people will be on the other calls. And that way it will never be a gigantic group where people just get lost and they never get called on. They never get their questions answered. We've all been on group calls like that. I don't know. I mean, at least I have. I've paid thousands and thousands of dollars. And then I'm like a face in the crowd. People never get to my question. Call is 7 gazillion hours long. Like, I don't want to create that. So I would say 60 is probably max. And I think 30 to 40 is a really nice, happy place. We're running groups of 30 and 40. And I know everybody, we know everyone's name. We know when somebody doesn't show up. We're up everybody's butt. We know exactly what's going on, and we're able to hold that. Think about it. If you had a house full of 40 people, you would be able to keep track of everybody's name. And if we were all talking, we were in a circle, you'd be able to follow that along. So that's kind of the rule of thumb that I use. Does that make sense? Okay. Renee's like, I want to work for you. You do want to work for me. You absolutely do. This is the most amazing team. I'm so blessed. Every single person on our copy coaching team is a former client that has literally come in, paid full price for the program, gone through the program themselves. We recognize that talent. We scoop them up and we're like, hey, would you like to work for us too, in addition to whatever else you might be doing? And when they say yes, so our clients are people who have been through our program as a client. They have experienced everything, which allows them to help us tweak our own processes to make them stronger. Oh, so good. So alignment, I'm a big believer. Can you tell? Right. Okay. So let's see. Is it recommended to plan the groups as beginner, intermediate, and advanced, or is it better to create program content to cater to the needs of wider groups? So, you have to figure out, and this is where I talk about, this is what we do in week 1, is figure out where on the continuum your ideal client lives. If you try to, so think of, where's the Continuum wrist pad? We should start selling this as merchandise. No, we shouldn't. Okay, so this is the Continuum. This is where this is like nirvana, right? This is like, oh my God, why? That's hell. You're probably somewhere over here. That's why you're in a position to lead, because you're closer to nirvana than your ideal client, who's probably somewhere over here. Now, here's the thing. You yourself have probably come from somewhere over here, and you were yourself at some point all the way along this continuum. But you only really became open to transformation somewhere over here. So literally, if you yourself were to reach back through time to an earlier version of yourself who's all like wrapped up in their pain and super attached to all their problems, right? We've all gone through phases like that in our lives where we're like, yeah, but fuck off, leave me alone. I'm just like, oh, woe is me, right? We've all gone through, I've certainly gone through phases in my life like that. And if I, Geeta, today had reached back through time to speak to Geeta back then, that Geeta would have told me to go suck her, you know what? So probably she had a potty mouth then too. So all this is, I meant lemon. Come on now. How did you? All this to say, you have to figure out where on the continuum your ideal client became ready to say yes, right? And you want to be building your group and your program around that point in the continuum. Because if you build it too wide, people who are closer to you, who are more advanced, who are the best clients to work with, are going to be bored out of their skulls, and they're not going to get much out of your program because it's so freaking basic. And on the other hand, if you make it that basic, then these people are not going to want to work with you, and then you're stuck working with extra basic people. Basic people also need a lot of education and a lot of handholding to even get to the point where they're ready to raise their hand, which then makes it really painful to sell premium. You can't sell premium to basic, right? So hopefully that answers your question. You want to make sure that you have a crystal clear understanding of where your client is on the continuum, where they're going to get the most out of working with you. Okay, now let's see, who else has a question? Does anybody have any more questions? Because we're almost out of time, but I think I have time for maybe one or two more questions if you have a good one. Yeah, lots of you have had experiences where you've not been happy with group programs. Okay, so, all right, it sounds like nobody has any questions. Quick, type like the wind. It takes a little hot minute it takes a hot minute for my phone to update and for me to see questions. But yay, I'm loving it. Okay, if you don't have questions, here's what I would like from you in the comments. Pop your biggest aha. What was the biggest, like, holy crap, I'd never considered that. Wow, okay, I see this completely differently. Hopefully everybody had one, at least one, and maybe many. What was your biggest aha? Pop those in the comments. That feedback that you give me is so beneficial because it helps me see what lands for you. It helps me understand, where there might be gaps in what I'm putting out every week. And that allows me to then, come up with the kind of lives that you most want to see. Does that make sense? So if you tell me what you're getting and you're like, oh, that was a big aha, then I'd be like, oh, people didn't know this? Great. I'm going to create even more content that's going to explain this better. Does that make sense? So help me out, help me help you. And so I can put out better tools, better resources, especially for those of you who are not quite ready to work with us all the way for like the significant investment. You're not ready, it's not the right time, you don't have the money, whatever your deal is. I would love to be able to serve you here for free. But in order for me to do that effectively, you have to keep giving me feedback. You have to ask me intelligent questions. You have to give me access to where you're at so that I can help you move forward. Does that make sense? When do you think one is ready to roll out a group program? Great question, Sneha. I think that you're ready to roll out a group program if you have done your process. You probably need to do your process one-on-one a little bit to make sure that it is robust enough, right? So that you charge a premium, do it one-on-one, and then you can literally charge the same price for your group program once you know that you've worked all the bugs out of it. So I'm not the person who's going to be like, hey, you don't know what you're doing? No problem. Charge people $5,000. They will totally pay. You can do it. and they might, but you'll feel like shit and it will ruin your life, and it's not worth it because $5,000 is not that much money ultimately at the end of the day. Okay. So you don't want to feel like an imposter. You don't want to end up with that equation. And we've talked about this with the subconscious blocks exercise. Scroll the group and you'll see a lot of people in the coaching world have this inhibitor in their programming, which is help equals harm. And it's created when people who are underqualified or unqualified put themselves out, position themselves as the absolute go-to expert when they don't take their own medicine. They aren't their own best client. So if you're in that place still, you're not ready for premium, and you may not be ready for group. But what you might want to do is get a bunch of clients to use your methods, to test your methods with. You can charge them some money so that they're invested in the process. And then once you've worked all the kinks out of it, then you're ready to do group. The only exception to that would be you have an incredible transformation that you have personally lived. I've worked with a couple of people like that I would describe this way. They walk their freaking talk. They have lived this incredible transformation. They may have been helping people sort of ad hoc for free throughout their life and not even thinking of it as coaching. They're ready. They're ready to deploy. They just need a system. They need, how to explain what they do, and they need to be connected to their audience, and that's it. And we can help with all those pieces. So if that's you, then absolutely you're ready to roll this out as a group program, or you might want to sign up your first 2 or 3 clients as one-on-one, just so you don't have the pressure of having to put together a group. We don't do launches, by the way. We do what's called rolling enrollment, which means, let's say you got on a phone call with someone on my team and you guys decided, after going through all the questions and making sure that we're the right fit, we decided, okay, yes, we want to invite you into the program. You could literally start today, right? And it doesn't matter what day unless it's Christmas and we're closed, because we are, but it doesn't matter what day of the year, you can start whenever you're ready to start. That's what rolling enrollment is. So I don't believe in launches. That's creates cash flow roller coaster. Blah, not my thing, right? So all this to say that you want to make sure that you get people in so that you've got some kind of flow and you've got some kind of confidence in your selling systems, which we will help you with. And then you're ready to do group. There you go. Okay, I see a whole bunch of questions coming in. I have to run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and answer your questions as much as I can in the comments. And if so many good questions come in, I will do another live. How about that? All right. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. This is super fun. I'm so grateful for this group. I'll see you next Thursday.